The Ministry of Agriculture, Food Production, Fisheries, Co-operatives and Rural Development, through its Extension and Advisory Services Division, presents Tutorials for Peri Urban Home Gardening. Hi, welcome once again to another program, Tutorials for Peri Urban Home Gardening. My name is Vernet James. In our last program, we took you through the nursery stage of your garden, and now the seedlings are ready for transplanting. Today, we will give guidance in selecting the right site for your garden and preparing the site for planting. Plants produce food in the presence of sunlight through a process known as photosynthesis. If you want to harvest huge, healthy fruits and vegetables from your home garden, be sure to select an area that receives an adequate amount of sunlight with a minimum of about 5 hours a day. Observe the site for shadows from tall trees and buildings before making a final decision. Check to ensure that the area is easy to work with, or if it will pose a challenge in getting the spot prepared. Perhaps another location might just be more appropriate. After ensuring that you have the minimum amount of sunlight required, 5 hours of minimum sunlight like we agreed upon, and you are sure that you have the most appropriate spot, measure to ensure that you have the right size of garden needed for your specific operation. Your garden size should be able to accommodate the number of seedlings that you would like to transplant. Consider also the amount of work required for the size of garden that you have in mind, whether or not you will have the time, material, and the manpower needed to keep your kitchen garden flourishing. It would be best to choose a garden size that you are comfortable with. Right now, we are at the site that we have chosen for the establishment of the garden. We have 3 main areas that we will be handling today. Number 1 will be the preparation of the site, which means that we will be removing all weeds, all debris, everything that is on site right now, which will hinder the successful growth of the plant. Number 2, we will be pruning the trees in the surrounding area, because as you can see, we have some amount of shading which will not be sufficient in terms of sunlight for the growth of the plant. And number 3, as we align the beds, we have to ensure that we establish the drainage necessary for the proper outflow of water during the rainy season. Now that you have chosen the site, it is time for preparation. The first step is to mark out the area. You can try using some string and some logwood to create or to mark out your boundaries. In your marked out area, remove all weeds, trees, stumps, stones, and other debris that would hinder the development of your plants and the spreading of roots. Overhead, trim branches and remove unwanted trees from in or near your garden area to give a clear picture of the site that you will be working in. Create beds of about 3 feet wide and adjacent drains of about 18 inches in width to the top and 12 inches at the base. With a garden fork, plow the ground sufficiently to loosen up the soil particles. If you are planting rooty vegetables, plow deep enough and loose enough to allow the roots to penetrate and develop adequately. Add organic matter such as pen manure or compost to improve the structure of the soil. Pen manure from cattle, poultry pens, horses, and small ruminants are ideal for home garden, but ensure that it is properly cured or dried before applying. Never use fresh manure just before planting, as these could encourage disease conditions in the garden. Use hand gloves when handling the pen manure. Charcoal dust could also be added, but in small amounts. Work the organic matter into the soil to improve its structure, to add nutrients, and to improve the water holding capacity of the soil. When you are satisfied with the texture and structure of your soil, then it is time to lay down your beds. Container planting is also highly recommended for small home gardens. The soil should be properly mixed before placing it into the containers. Your containers should have sufficient holes to allow the water to drain out properly. If the container is placed on a plate, the excess water should be drained out. If you are using containers, make certain that they are large enough to accommodate the required number of plants for proper spacing and growth. Your containers should be placed within the garden area, allowing the same husbandry practices as the open ground. Whether you are planting in containers or directly into the ground, ensure that excess water is able to drain sufficiently from your garden. The depth of drains in your garden will depend specifically on your field and should serve the purpose of removing all excess water. Remember, be sure to select an area that receives an adequate amount of sunlight with a minimum of about 5 hours a day. Check to ensure that the area is easy to work with or if it will pose a challenge in getting the spot prepared. Measure to ensure that you have the right size of garden needed for your specific operation. Remove all weeds and other debris that would hinder the development of your plants and the spreading of roots. Add organic matter, but ensure that it is properly cured or dried before applying. Ensure containers are large enough to accommodate the required number of plants for proper spacing and growth. Now that you have selected the appropriate site and the site is prepared, the seedlings are ready for transplanting. Join us next time when we take you to the next stage of your garden. Until then, I am Vernet James. Thank you for joining us.